All right, Sherpa here with a special treat for March Madness. We've talked about the final 4 tax mitigation strategies and how opportunity zones come out on top, hands down. In light of it being March Madness, I wanted to talk about my experience within playing in the NCAA tournament or being a part of a team that played in the NCAA tournament and how we got beat second round. But I'm here with the man who was part of that Final Four, not just once, but twice for Duke back in the 60s. And so, Dad, tell us about that experience of true March Madness and what it was like going all the way.
It was exciting. We got to travel, we got to meet people, we got to play in different gyms, we got to play different kinds of teams, and we met some great individuals.
So what team were you on, and what years did you play?
I played at Duke from 63, 64, and 65. And in 63, we got beat in the semifinals by Loyola of Chicago. And then back then they played for third place. And we played Oregon, who had Mel Counts, who was a 7-footer. He was taller than I was. And it was fun to play against him. I remember one time we were coming down the floor on offense in a fast break, and he was going to stop us. And he jumped in front of Art Heyman, who was Player of the Year that year, and Art dribbled right between his legs and picked up the ball and delivered it in the basket.
Only Art Heyman. Only Art Heyman.
I got to play with some great people on our team. Art Heyman was Player of the Year. Jeff Mullins, who played for the Warriors, was a 3-time All-Pro. And
he was my coach at UNC Charlotte.
Yes, he was the coach. He's a heck of a guy.
Yeah, one of the greatest human beings I've ever met.
Yeah, Jeff was super. And then I got to play with Jack Marin, and he was an All-Pro. Bob Verga, who was an All-Pro, and we beat some good teams.
So walk us through that 64 year.
64 was against the first round was against Michigan, and
in the semifinals of the Final Four.
Semifinals of the Final Four, and I guarded Cazzie Russell and held him to 31 points.
Tell him the rest of that story.
Plus he had a broken foot.
And you kept him at 31. It's respectable.
But he only got 1 rebound, and that he was killing people with getting rebounds and putting them back in. And we had a 7-footer with Jay Buckley, and had Jeff Mullins on the team too. And so the other people didn't kill us. So he was, Cazzie was an unbelievable player.
So you guys beat Michigan in the semis.
Michigan. Back then, you played on a Friday night and then a Saturday night. And then I needed help getting back to the motel because I couldn't walk after having played Cazzie. And it worked as hard as I could work. And so the next night, we go up against John Wooden and UCLA. And they didn't have anybody much over 6'8", one player. And we were beating them pretty bad. Well, not bad, but we were beating them. We were up on them. And they took him out, and that was the guy I was guarding, and they put in a 6'4" guy by the name of Washington. And he was so fast that I blinked and missed him. He was unbelievable, he really was. And so they beat us, and it was not much fun. They taunted us after the game. We were sitting there waiting for our medals. that they give you for second place and the people for first place, and they were sitting there taunting us. I've hated UCLA ever since.
Tell us a story about the ball boy.
The ball boy. Remind me of this. I'm 81 years old and things don't come back to me as like they should.
I'm trying to remember what his name was.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. We were at the tournament in one of the games, and we had a ball boy who wasn't signed in. And he was all unhappy when we got there, and he was walking towards me. And I said, where are you going? He says, they won't let me in. I said, come here a minute. And I called the team over, and the guy that was carrying the basketball bag, got that bag, emptied it, and gave all the boys a ball, and stuffed him in the bag, and we carried him in. And when we were carrying him in, the guy that was taking tickets and causing people to stop and not go looked at us and he says, you know, if you want him in there that bad, it's okay with me.
So I get to Charlotte.
That ball boy, particular ball boy, lives here in Charlotte now.
That's right. And I get to Charlotte, and he comes up to me and he says, hi. He said, I want to tell you a story about your dad. He said, I was at the Final Four, and I couldn't get in the game, and your dad's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He's like, get in this bag. And he owns a substantial advertising agency here in Charlotte now. Great guy, huge supporter of UNC Charlotte. So it's really cool how kind of all things come full circle.
He was a big fan of ours, but he was not real big, so he fit in the bag pretty well.
So, all right, so 64, you beat Michigan, and then you got beat by UCLA. You ended up playing in 65.
Correct.
And, you know, it's almost like history repeating itself. Walk us through what happened in the ACC tournament that year. Because back then, you had to win the ACC tournament in order to go to the NCAAs.
That's exactly right. When in our sophomore year, my sophomore year, we were 13-0 in ACC play, and we won the tournament. And then in my junior year, we were 13-1. We lost one to Wake Forest, 72-71 or 73-72, something like that. It was always tough to play Wake Forest at Wake Forest. And then the next year, we ended up being 17-3, or I think, or 14-3 or something like that. And we lost 2 regular season games, and we got into the semifinals, and we were playing Wake Forest. And it was a heck of a game. I went up for a rebound and got my feet knocked out from under me. And I came down on my behind and was unable to walk the next day. I finished that game out and did not realize how badly I'd been hurt, but I couldn't walk the next day. And then about a year ago, I fell and broke my hip. And that's why I'm walking with a cane now. And when I got x-rayed for my hip, they looked at my whole spine, and the guy says, well, you broke your back a couple of times, didn't you? And I said, I did. And then I remembered back to that, and I fractured a vertebrae, and fortunately I didn't have to play anymore. I tried to play the next game, but I couldn't. But I remember that back hurt for a month and a half or something like that after the game. But that we didn't have any backup for me really. And we had 3 All-Americans on the team, plus me and my roommate. So Bob Reedy, I mean, Bob Verga and Jack Marin and Steve Vasindak. Steve Vasindak ended up being a coach over here in school that's just over in South Carolina. I can't remember, but he was there for a while. And Jack Marin went back to school and got an attorney's degree. And then I don't think he ever uses it. He just goes around and he played basketball and played golf. He was a scratch golfer. So.
And what happened in that game? So in the ACC tournament, the final game of that ACC tournament, who'd you guys play?
We played North Carolina State.
There you go. Man, and what happened?
They just beat us.
So it's
I couldn't do anything about it.
Yep.
I was sitting on the bench.
Yep. So fascinating that Duke got taken out of the ACC tournament in 1965, and they got taken out of the ACC tournament in 2024.
That's right.
Yep.
It's a plot against us.
I was wondering if there was something rigged, especially because they then went and beat Carolina after that.
What's that?
Yeah, especially because they beat Carolina after that.
That was kind of nice, actually. Here we had a pretty good ranking up close to the top 10. Carolina was number 3 or 4, and North Carolina State beats us and then them. So our loss is not as bad as it was.
Was not all in vain, right?
The night before.
That's right. Well, Dad, thanks for talking to us about your experience, and it's really cool to have grown up as part of the Duke family.
Yeah.
And I pull for Duke, except for when they're playing Carolina. Haven't gone to law school there. But it certainly is an honor and a privilege to be a part of the family and to hear the stories about how I got put on the map.
Well, it was fun doing it, and it was fun being there, and it was fun growing up with you, because I remember going to your gym and playing basketball with you.
That's right.
And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And my son before that was a runner, and I used to go running with him. I didn't enjoy that much.
I think it was 18 before I could beat you in one-on-one.
Wow.
And the first game that I did, I think I had to crack 2 of your ribs.
It could be.
Well, there you have it, folks. Awesome sitting here with the Duke basketball legacy, and it was fantastic being a part of that. And we're excited to see what happens as we head into this year's March Madness. Hopefully, Duke will pull it out. Hopefully, they'll turn it around as they get into the tournament. All things and all bets are off in the NCAA tournament. So excited to see how that ends up. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll end up with a Duke Carolina rematch in the Final Four like we had a couple years ago.